I feel like Lisa Frank ruined my life.
Lisa Frank, Glitter and Greed, First Impression Part 3. This is the final part, and we're going to be talking about the stories of Tassel Fairy, who is who you just saw, as well as Glamour Dolls.
First contract that we had with Lisa, she required a guaranteed minimum royalty of $100,000 for 2017 and a $25,000 advance, and then 15% of our net sales, which we later learned was on the high side for licensing. But we were just so excited about launching this collaboration.
Now, that was one of the co-owners of Glamour Dolls Cosmetics, which was a low-cost vegan makeup brand. And that was Peter. His partner was Jessica. However, they're not really friends anymore after a lot of this stuff happened. So they're excited they're going to get this collab, but that's a heck of a lot of fees. So they turned to Kickstarter.
Glamour Dolls makeup line will be the first line that Lisa Frank has done specifically for adults.
You're telling backers you're getting product in return. You can kind of help bring this idea to life.
Jess and I had come up with a fun concept for eyeshadow palettes that were in the form of a Trapper Keeper and a small collection of products just to see how the industry and the customers might respond to this kind of quirky collaboration.
Now, Trapper Keeper eyeshadows happened, but it was with Morphe. We're going to get to that in a second. However, you've got these young people who are starting this brand, and they're really, really excited, and they're kind of jumping into it. So they start this Kickstarter that ends up raising $475,000. But with that $475,000 is a promise that they will have products from this line by the end of the year. A promise that is not able to be fulfilled for a lot of different reasons, but mostly creative differences and Lisa not really committing to anything. Shortly after meeting these people, Lisa had started doing some stuff like she would no longer communicate with Jessica, the female business partner. She would only talk to the dude. Then she started asking him to do more and more.
I went to Greece. Lisa wanted to go first class, top luxury, and pull out all the stops. Lisa told me that it was also going to be a business trip and that this is how big companies did things.
Just that phrasing, this is how big companies do things. Well, that's not a big company. That's a Kickstarter-funded little company. And the money from the Kickstarter was mostly being used to pay these fees rather than to create products.
We had to renew for another year. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to complete the Kickstarter products. But minimum royalty had increased from $100,000 to $500,000.
The advances she wanted went from $25,000 a quarter to $125,000 a quarter. That's not like a small increase.
And she now wanted the payment at the beginning of each quarter.
So all of this, they're working on changes, they're trying to do everything that they can, and Lisa pulls out of the contract and ends the licensing agreement, which means that none of the products are going to be made. And all of the licensing money has already been paid out to Lisa Frank, so there's nothing to refund the Kickstarter people, and people are still mad about this to this day. Go read my comment sections. But no one really says anything until Lisa releases an email herself.
In November 2020, a Lisa Frank spokesperson told Business Insider that Glamour Dolls was the reason why the Kickstarter collection didn't fulfill its promises. They also claimed that Lisa Frank Inc. had contacted the federal government about this.
They would later find out, after filing a federal lawsuit against Lisa for defamation, breach of contract, all of this stuff, right? That no such investigation ever took place. They had kind of mentioned it in passing to someone who they know is associated with the FBI, and that's the entire story. The lawsuit is still ongoing, but 7 of their claims of defamation and breach of contract were actually dismissed in September. However, a few are still going through. This brings us to Tassel Fairy, and when Glamour Dolls saw what Tassel Fairy was going through, they were like, oh my gosh, this is very eerily similar.
Hi, unicorns! Welcome back to the Tassel Fairy channel. I am Amina, the Tassel Fairy.
I followed all of the Tassel Fairy stuff when it happened, and, you know, really she was done dirty, but there's a lot of controversy about it because Tassel Fairy had her own apartment in downtown LA. It was a loft space, and she had designed this and become really, really popular for this design. She was on the cover of IKEA magazine, she was on Good Morning America, a lot of stuff, and she had had personal contact from Lisa Frank about how much Lisa Frank really loved her apartment. So she was really surprised when she started getting some emails.
So similar to my apartment, Cloudland. And I was like, huh? The first time I looked at pictures of the Lisa Frank pop-up hotel, it felt like my brain started screaming. Because when I first saw the pictures of the pop-up, especially the kitchen, It was like a shot-for-shot remake of my kitchen that I had decorated with my own hands.
I encourage you to go follow Tassel Fairy's socials because there's a lot more that went on here than I can kind of encapsulate in this, especially a video from 2019 that was kind of when this was all happening in real time. But not only does this pop-up start getting talked about and everyone's like, that really, really looks like your place. Then it turns out that the management company that manages the building where the pop-up is going to be also manages the building where Tassel Fairy lives. And Tassel Fairy is told that she is being evicted.
By that time, my wife and I were really struggling financially, and I was behind with rent. Management at my apartment wanted us out. The date that they wanted us out coincided with the date that the pop-up was going to actually be announced. Like, it was really surreal and dizzying and confusing.
The eviction does end up going through, and things are quiet for a minute until Tassel Fairy sees Lisa doing some real performative stuff and just decides to call it out.
I couldn't tolerate it. It was intolerable for me. So I started talking about it on social media. And that started getting a lot of attention.
Lisa did end up responding and, for lack of a better term, tried to flip the script.
We were disappointed to hear of an opportunistic individual taking that moment to focus attention on herself. Should be themselves, but for their own personal benefit by repeating their false allegations that we have stolen artwork and designs from them. Over the past months, we have silently forgiven them. They tried to say that I was doing the very thing they were doing. Literally, I can't. The irony is too much.
Judging by the way most people have said that Lisa has dealt with artists and artwork, it does lend a little credence to this story and the fact that so many people have the same story over and over again. She took what I made, gave me scraps for it, if anything at all, and then made millions. At the end of the day, Lisa Frank's legal team is working overtime. I know people who have gotten cease and desists and lots of lawsuits. If you're an employee who speaks out, you're probably going to get something in the mail, which makes me interested to see what's going on that side. Even with this, it was within the contract that even though this was designed by Glamour Dolls, this was Lisa's property and she could have it produced by anyone, which is why it went to Morphe. So that ends our series here, and I hope you guys have a good day. Whew.